Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, uh, very good morning to you. I would like one of the organizers to let me know if I can start with my presentation straight away. First of all, my apologies for not being there in person in Bangkok. And secondly, I want to apologize for this rather live telecast rather than my normal method of recording a video and sending the video with my slides. The reason is that I accepted two invitations in quick succession. One was the Pakistan Edible Oil Conference organized by our dear friend Rashid Bhai, where I made an appearance after quite a few years. And having recorded that while I was on the road, and I have been traveling in the last few days, it was not possible for me. I thought I would record another video on my laptop while I am traveling, but technically it turned out to be very challenging, and I felt that the quality of the recording would not be up to scratch. So I requested my dear friend Sandeep Bajoria and Kailash and Adil to see if we can do a live broadcast this time. And I must say, I am impressed by their technology because from what I can see, the picture is extremely sharp, and they have managed to have a live telecast with recording. So it has saved me the trouble of preparing slides because I know more or less what I want to talk to you about. And I want to talk to you freely, frankly, as one friend to another. And if possible, I will also take some questions later on. The advantage of a live speech is always that you can take into account the market happenings of the moment. What happened last night in Chicago? What happened in BMD in the last couple of days? When you record a speech, you record it about 4 or 5 days in advance, and your slides are prepared probably a week in advance. So you miss out on that up to date updating, which is so important in commodity markets. So that is why I am delighted to be with you live on this telecast and to give you my impressions with comments on everything, as I mentioned, until what happened last night. The topic that I chose was prospects for 2024. Now, prospects is not just market prospects, because the market is the distillation of prospects around us in every sphere of activity. So we have huge political prospects for 2024. Half the world, half the world is going to elect a new president or a new government. Now, the largest chunk of that electorate is, of course, in India. And there one might say that the election results are fairly predictable. Nothing is predictable until the counting is done, as you know. But you could say that India is one of the few places in the world where the election result can be forecast with a certain degree of confidence. And I am not going to try and forecast it. But there are two very important, or rather three very important elections which are going to take place. One which is extremely important from the palm oil point of view, which is the election in Indonesia. And my impression is that the outcome is not as clear cut as the market thinks it to be. And I feel the market is being very complacent about the Indonesian election. Remember, Indonesia surprised everyone in 2022. Nobody, no pundit, no expert had predicted an export ban. That too from a very sensible president like President Jokowi, remarkable leader, probably the second most impressive leader in the democratic world. And yet his government got misled into this ban on palm exports. Fortunately, very quickly they undid the ban, but the damage was done. So let us not be very complacent about the Indonesian election. And I think the most complacent are the Indonesian industry themselves. But there are a few knowledgeable people who are telling me that the outcome is not so clear cut. And we have to watch the proceedings, particularly if the present favorite, Mr. Prabowo, does not make it. And one of his two challengers comes in, because the challengers appear to me to be a little more populist than Mr. Prabowo. So this is something that we have to bear in mind. Indonesia is a vibrant democracy. It is a genuine democracy. And that is why the election result can go either way. And we should follow it. The second important election is in the United States. And I am not going to try and guess, because that is in the public domain. And every day you can follow that election. And I don't think it will have such a big effect on agriculture. If Donald Trump is elected, he may put some restrictions on trade with China. He may do things like that. But by and large, I think there will be a continuity of policies. If the Democrats come to power, there will be more emphasis on green energy and biodiesel. There may even be more emphasis on biodiesel in this next year while the campaign is going on, because the Democrats will try and win the agricultural states by helping biofuels and bioenergy. The Republicans are traditionally more for fossil fuels, but we will have to see. But the important thing is that the US election is extremely well covered. Every day you will get 2-3 articles in the media or television, so you can follow it very easily and draw your own conclusions. The election that I am very interested, and which I think as in Indians, and I know that the biggest chunk of my audience today is from India, is the election in the United Kingdom, where we have a young man, a man of Indian origin, outstanding person, who is the Prime Minister. First of all, huge credit to him and to the United Kingdom for having elected the son of an immigrant, a colored man, as Prime Minister. Wonderful, wonderful achievement. But he is in a lot of trouble. He is behind in the opinion polls. He is down by as much as 20 points in the opinion polls. But he has 1 year to go. Inflation is coming down. He has a budget in which he may cut taxes. And the economy looks like it is finally on the mend. And we know that in these developed countries, it is the economy which determines the result. So even though the media pundits say that Rishi Sunak is down and Labour is the overwhelming favorite, personally speaking, as Dorab Mistry, I am not prepared to write off Rishi Sunak's chances. And we have seen in history that his luck, his naseeb, is so strong. And in politics, You can be the best and most capable man, but if you don't have luck, you cannot win. And Sunak's luck has been very powerful. We have seen it in the last 10 years that he has come from nowhere. And whatever impediment, whoever the competitor be in his path, he just swallows up the competitor. The competitor fades away, disappears, and Sunak prevails. So that is a very interesting election, which I will be following. In India, there is a likelihood that after the elections, the fun and games will actually begin, because the government may have to increase import duty on vegetable oil. But that is something that there will be plenty of opportunity and warning for that, and we will be able to see it. So that is as far as the political prospects are concerned. The economic prospects for the industry as a whole, and I'm not talking just of our industry, but growth worldwide, are definitely on the up and up. I think 2024 promises to be a very good year for the world economy. Unless if external factors like the present conflicts deteriorate. If we have the same situation of a stalemate in the Ukraine, some harassment of shipping in the Red Sea, some continuation of the Middle East conflict, I think the world economy will take it in its stride. The world is very resilient. One of the things that we have learned in the last 20 years is that the world economy is so important and so strong that even with a pandemic, we have been able to carry on, we have been able to recover, we have been able to spread prosperity. And that is one of the great things about our civilization, about the technology, and about the way we conduct our way of life. So I remain optimistic on the economic growth. It may not be what the IMF suggests. It may be a little less, little more. But by and large, I remain very sanguine, very optimistic about prospects. I'm not saying that I remain optimistic also about stock markets, equities, because the stock markets have had a very good 2023. And as we all know, markets are cyclical, markets are capricious, and markets have to be respected. So while you may have very good growth, it may be that some of that growth, some of that good luck of 2024 was already extracted or borrowed by the market in 2023. And that is why we had that scintillating rally in the last 1 month of 2023. And that is why in 2024, there is a little bit of hesitation in the markets. In fact, but for the big rally in Wall Street last night, most of the indicators were minus for this present year, the first fortnight. But last night we recovered a lot. This steam engine of AI seems to be running the economies. Remember, knowledge is power. Technology is power. Today, that is the real power of the world. And that is why countries like India, which have a lot of soft power, which have a lot of investment in technology, human capital, are doing so well. And that will continue to be the case. And this new steam engine of AI, and there is going to be a lot more to come after that. So that I feel very reassured is going to power ahead the growth and prosperity for 2024. And Asia is very well placed because it's very funny, but the three most important AI chip makers in the world, NVIDIA, AMD, and Broadcom, who are the CEOs and founders of these companies? They are all from Asia. In fact, they are from one country, Taiwan. The two biggest software companies in the world, Microsoft and Google, who are the CEOs of those companies? They come from India. So I feel that 2024 will be another year of huge importance to Asia. And that includes India, Malaysia, Singapore, China, all these countries. And we have a good basis for prosperity for next year. I also feel that in keeping with the general trend, interest rates will come down. Don't mind the present aberration that interest rates have spiked. I think they spiked because people were too hasty in saying that interest rates will come down and there will be 7 cuts. Now, last night they were saying, no, there will be 5 cuts. The Fed will cut 5 times. I don't know how we can predict that with such confidence. The Fed consists of very, very wise human beings, and they have the right and the ability to change their mind. In fact, the Fed chairman has very often said, and he is not the first Fed chairman, right from Ben Bernanke, he has been saying, we are data driven. We look at the facts, we look at the data, and we take a decision. So when the Fed is data driven, they have the right to change their mind and also to leak and to give hints to the market that they are going to change their mind. So that is what has happened recently, that the Fed has given hints that the market has been too hasty in taking account of interest rate cuts. But the overall direction of travel, that interest rates will come down, is, I believe, going to be there. It is sacrosanct. And that is why we have to hope and expect that the US dollar will slightly weaken. And the US dollar weakening is usually very beneficial for the developing world. And it means that consumption goes up, commodity prices rise, because people with a lower dollar can afford to buy those commodities. So demand goes up, prices go up. So there is a healthy confluence on pricing of commodities, particularly energy and metals. Agriculture, one cannot be so optimistic on pricing because the other prospect for 2024 is climatic. 2023 was supposed to be a big problem in terms of climate with El Nino. But El Nino never came with the ferocity that we were expecting, particularly in Southeast Asia. In India, we escaped El Nino. We had a little bit of problem with the monsoon, but everything turned out fine at the end. And that has been the story everywhere, including in Brazil, where we thought that there would be a dry spell and the crop would be delayed, the crop would be damaged. Only damage in one state, Mato Grosso. Otherwise, the rains are fine, and we are going to have a humongous soybean crop from South America. So El Nino is now virtually dead or dying, and there is at the moment no other major weather calamity that we can see on the horizon. It doesn't mean that there will not be any weather problems. There will be, but there doesn't seem to be a serious weather problem in the offing. So given reasonably good weather, I think we must expect productivity to take over and very good production, particularly of grains and oilseeds all over the world. And at the same time, on the demand side, we are not yet out of the woods. And here, the biggest country which has been underperforming on demand is China. Now, there is a school of thought which says that China has underperformed for too long, and that in 2024, China will come back roaring. We have yet to see. This is something that we will be following very closely, almost on a week-to-week basis. We have excellent friends in China who brief us on what is happening. But right now, it appears that the recovery in China will have to wait until after Chinese New Year. And it will mean some form of stimulus to come from the government, which the government seems to be interested to put forward. So one has to remain optimistic, but we will only change our mind when we see that optimism translate into reality. So China has been disappointing on the demand side. Then the dollar shortage in several Asian and African countries still, unfortunately, is a problem. And the IMF, the World Bank, the big prosperous Western countries must sit down together and ensure that demand is rebuilt, demand is sustained. Because if demand is sustained, even they prosper. Sustaining demand, stimulating demand is a win-win situation. Suppressing demand by squeezing on currencies, on interest rates, is actually counterproductive to world prosperity. So we have to see that good sense prevails, but until that demand stimulus comes, until demand becomes strong, we cannot be optimistic on agricultural prices. This is the one downside I see for 2024, that production is excellent, demand is somewhat soft. Don't just go by India. India is an island of prosperity in terms of demand against the rest of the developing world, which is not so strong economically. So I don't think demand is going to be that strong, but supply is good, except that in vegetable oil, we have a slight problem on supply. And that should bring me to the main topic for today, which is the outlook for veg oils, particularly for palm oil. Palm oil has some constraints on production. We are not sure how bad things are, but we are following things day to day. At the moment, my guess is that Indonesia will produce about unchanged to 1 million tons less in 2024, not more, less. And Malaysia will be unchanged at best. So the growth in world production of palm oil will mainly come from Central America and a little bit maybe from Thailand and neighboring countries. But there isn't going to be any substantial increase in production of palm oil in 2024. There is going to be a very big increase in the soybean crop. The crop will be up by about, in my opinion, 30 million tons, because whatever we lost in Argentina, we are going to gain this year. And plus, soybean being a very hardy oilseed, its cultivation all over the world, different countries, keeps on expanding, except India, unfortunately. Every other country, Europe, South America, they plant more and more soya because it's a very hardy seed and it's almost a passport to prosperity. Corn and soya cultivation keeps increasing. And that soya is all going to be crushed because Argentina will re-establish its crush of over 35 million tons, which last year we did not achieve. So, with the crush coming up in the United States, biodiesel being more and more favored, there is going to be a surfeit of soybean oil. And already we find that for the peak months of May, June, July, soybean oil is competing very aggressively with palmolene in the international market. In addition to that, we take our hat off to the farmers in Russia and Ukraine, who have produced stunningly big sunseed crops and helped the world with probably the best vegetable oil at very, very attractive prices. Now, recent disruption in the Red Sea, etc., may create temporary shortages, dislocation, but the supply of sun oil is going to continue, and sun oil will continue to capture markets from soya and palm in countries like India, like China, and of course all the developed countries where sun oil is a preferred oil. We also have the possibility that biofuels will be on a much higher level next year. And the growth in biofuel will be at least 4 million tons next year. In fact, there is hardly a week going by when a new biofuel plant is not being announced. Just last week, We had a new biodiesel plant announced in Brazil, and Neste has said that they are going to increase their production of sustainable aircraft fuel over a period of time. It will kick in 2025. We read the other day that the amount of biofuel blended into marine fuel is going to double from 500,000 tons to 1 million tons by 2025. This is the amount of marine fuel that is actually going to be blended and used in Singapore alone. So wherever we see all over the world, biofuels are one of the easiest and most attractive ways of reducing carbon concentration and at the same time spreading prosperity to agriculture. So that trend is going to continue, and Indonesia is the trailblazer. Many other countries will come in. I'm glad to see that India is also going into biofuels gradually more and more as our economy is getting upgraded. So this is a plus for demand. And biofuel is usually consumed in developed countries, so there is no question of payment problems, etc. The scenario for prices, given the fact that there is so much production coming in, I believe soybean oil production in the world will increase by about 2 million tons at least next year. Demand, on the other hand, on paper looks like increasing much more. In my paper in Karachi the other day, I projected that demand could go up by as much as 7 million tons, incremental production and supply and demand. Because if food demand goes up by 3 million tons, biofuel demand goes up by 4 million tons, total demand on paper goes up by 7 million tons. And against that, the production is mainly going to expand in soya oil. Sun oil may expand a little bit, but not by much. And palm, as I mentioned to you, looks like stagnating in production. So there is a big mismatch. Now, just because there is a mismatch on paper doesn't mean that there is going to be an immediate rally in prices. The rally may take long to happen, and the mismatch may not also happen. We have to watch. This is very early days. But right now, it looks like there is a mismatch. And some of that demand may not come if prices go up. So we have to take that into account also. So right now, in my opinion, there are two models of the trajectory of prices. The one that I favor is that there is a slight rally in prices going on, mainly because of palm. And the main reason for that is the festival season, the Chinese New Year, and then the Ramzan holidays. So palm production is under pressure and not likely to perform. We are, of course, in the leanest part of the year. Jan, Feb are the leanest months for palm production. But then there is no guarantee that production will pick up in March and April because of the Ramzan holidays, the festivals, etc. So palm production will actually recover only from May onwards. And until then, there will be problems. There is an election in Indonesia. We don't know what will happen. We don't know what the new government will do in case there is a tightness of supply. So there are lots of imponderables. And because of these imponderables, the palm market has begun to discount some of these bullish factors. So we are seeing what we call a halki tezi in the market, some teji. And in my opinion, that may continue for a few days or few weeks more until the situation is clear. And the situation will become clear with the Brazilian crop and the Argentine crop. Brazil still, I think, another 25 to 30 days before we are sure that the crops are made and Brazil will produce 150 million tons of soybeans. Argentina, we still have 2 months to go because they've just planted the crop. But if these crops are made and we find that South America is going to produce this massive amount of 210 million tons of soybeans, then the crush will come in a big way. And by May, June, there will be huge amounts of soybean oil looking for a home. And that will put pressure on everything. including palm, sun, rape, whatever it is. We will have to be careful at that stage. So that is my first scenario, that a small rally followed by a decline, not a dramatic decline, not a collapse, 5 or 10% decline. So 3 to 5% rally in prices followed by 5 to 10% decline. I don't expect much to happen if the dollar doesn't weaken dramatically. The second scenario, which I have been hearing about in the last few days, is that there is a problem on palm production, particularly in Indonesia. The weather has been a bit odd. Some parts of Indonesia were affected by El Nino. And there has been very little replanting, both Malaysia and Indonesia. So the trees are now getting older and more tired. One of my friends in the plantation industry said, I can't explain to you why production is not coming through. We are flummoxed ourselves. We don't know. And that is quite natural. It happens from time to time. So because of that, if palm production underperforms, if Indonesia produces 1 million tons less than last year, or even unchanged, if Malaysia produces less, then there is likely to be a rally, and the rally will continue. So we have to follow this very closely and with an open mind and talking to honest people. If we do that and we find that palm production is not responding, then the only way that prices can come down is soybean oil. And we have to watch, in that case, US politics and the rollout of new capacity for renewable diesel and sustainable aircraft fuel, because these are the big demand leaders of the world for vegetable oil. And in all this, the final piece, chess piece that we must consider is whether India will impose an import duty on vegetable oils after the election results come out in May, in late April. Because India is going to have a big problem of huge stocks of oil seeds, which Indian farmers have not been able to sell. And Indian farmers, it is likely, will not be able to reap the benefits of the MSP which the government has announced. I know that the chairman of NAFED is in Bangkok with this conference, and we hope that NAFED will perform. But in the past, we have seen that NAFED can only perform if the government gives them backing in the form of financing. And at the moment, it doesn't look like that is coming through. And NAFED, in any case, has a capacity to buy 2-3 million tons of oil seed. But we have got a huge carryover and a huge new crop of mustard seed, good soybean crop. So I think the task for procurement is Herculean. And as a result, Indian farmers may be disappointed. So the government will wait. They are obsessed with, and rightly so, with inflation, particularly for the urban consumers who are the bedrock of support for the ruling party. So they will wait until after the elections, but then there could be some relief. And remember, relief is very easy to administer by just putting up some import duty. If that happens, that is bullish for local Indian prices, bearish for world prices. And it may also help to temper the almost runaway increase in vegetable oil imports. If duty is not increased, in my opinion, next year's imports of vegetable oil in India will be roughly the same as last year's. Most analysts say they will be down by 500,000 tons, 1 million tons. I don't believe so. Because importers look at the profitability and the convenience of importing. Palm is a fine example of that. And that is why tonnages will remain very strong unless import duty goes up and import becomes unprofitable. That is important. So that is why I'm leaning more and more towards the scenario that some form of import control or import duty increase will come in India after the election results are out. So I will wind up and sum up by saying that the price outlook which I put out a few days ago, the BMD up to May, June, going to a high of 4,200 and trading in a range between 3,600, 3,800 and 4,200 for the first half of the year. Very difficult to project for the second half of the year because, as you know, there are these uncertainties about import duty into India, production, etc. If palm production fails to perform, then this 4,000 ringgit will be maintained through the year. If palm production begins to perform as normal, seasonally, and production rises, then palm has to go down in price. So these are my basic thoughts on how things are going. And I am always an optimist in the sense, I think the industry will continue to do well, continue to service its customers very well. In India, we have a little problem that the refining industry is going through very difficult times, and the government seems to be completely oblivious to it. At the same time, we have to give the government credit that they don't panic when small difficulties happen. Wheat is an excellent example. We thought in August and September that India will have to import wheat. But the Indian government was determined and saying, no, we are not going to import wheat. We will release wheat from our stocks, etc., and manage the situation. And they have. And as a result, wheat prices in the world have been very soft, mainly because the expected demand from India never materialized. And at the same time, Indian prices, while they are high, they are not so high as to discourage consumption and to cause difficulty to Indian consumers. So the government has managed the wheat situation quite, I would say, astutely. And we must not underrate their chances of managing the vegetable oil situation also very astutely from time to time. But overall, I think slight increase in import duty in India after April, may be required. So we have to be braced for some high prices, particularly in palm. It is possible that palm will go to a premium to soybean oil just for a short period of time, because we have rising supply in soybean oil and declining supply in palm. That may happen. These aberrations take place from time to time. But by and large, I don't expect dramatic changes in the prospects for 2024. And I look forward to another good year for the industry, for consumers, for producers. And as I always do, wish you all the best in your endeavors. So with that, I finish my presentation. I hope you found it interesting. And if there is a question or two, my friend Sandeep Bajoria can text me or let me know, and I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you. I think some of you have been rather surprised to see me live. I'm receiving lots of text messages from friends, etc. So very interesting. It's always a great pleasure. And a live show is really a challenge. And I'm glad in a way that it all went off well. Yes, here is the first question from Sandeep. With more soya oil, Indian import of soya will increase by 1 million and reduce palm by 1 million. What do you feel? I don't think so. Palm will increase for sure. But I don't think this parallel is going to happen, that soya imports will increase, because soya imports are already a bit depressed at the moment. And soya availability will only increase from May onwards, not before that. So we will have a little less import of soybean oil until May. After May, it will pick up. And in the meantime, palm will be required. So in my opinion, it's more or less unchanged. I am actually projecting, as the people who heard my presentation in Karachi will realize, that I am projecting 2.9 million tons of soybean oil import, 2.9 million tons of sun oil, and over 10 million tons of palm imports for next year. So palm, because it is very competitive right now, it has become competitive. It was not, but it has become competitive, and it will continue to be competitive. And I am not bearish on soybean oil prices until May, June, July. So in the first half of the year, I think palm will build up a very good lead with big tonnages. For example, dislocation by the Red Sea, which is the oil which will replace in the dislocation? It will be palm. So I think that we will not see palm down by 1 million and soya up by 1 million. I think soya will hold its place, but palm will also hold its place. And we will see 10 million tons of palm oil imported in 23-24. Sustainable aviation fuel is something of great interest, but it is too soon. Sustainable aviation fuel plants are just going into production, and they are going to use at the moment. So it is not a big factor for 2024. It is a big factor for 2025. But certainly, yes, up to 250,000 or half a million tons of sustainable aircraft fuel will be consumed in 2024. And that is why we believe that 4 million tons of biofuel will be used next year. There will be additional demand. Now, if there are no other questions, and I feel I've given quite a comprehensive view, I will be, oh yes, there is one more. Since soya oil is anticipated to be 875 in forward months, do you think palm will be able to sustain prices above 900? Up to May, I have no doubt that palm will go higher than 900. Beyond May, it is possible that palm will face a challenge from soybean oil. But as I said, if production in Indonesia does not perform, then we will have a period of time where palm will be at a premium to soybean oil. And we will have to do that to destroy palm demand. These things happen from time to time. We have seen it happen. And it is likely to happen in 2024 because we have huge supply of soybean oil and relatively stagnant supply of palm oil. So that is likely to happen and likely to cause some kind of disruption. Now, Rashid Jan Muhammad is telling me, and big hello to him, that his question is also whether palm will be able to sustain prices beyond 900. Yes, it can. And you will see it happen in the very near future, because palm is very seasonal. And all the bullish factors are combining in this present seasonal from now until the end of Ramzan and the return of the workers and the recommencement of high production. So palm will go to a premium to soybean oil. And at the same time, there will be geographical need for palm to go to markets which are its traditional markets. So, and don't forget that something unusual can happen in Indonesia. Don't rule it out. A country which is in election, and a closely fought election, can never be ruled out. So we have some uncertainties. I am not saying we are going to face a runaway bull market, but palm going to a premium to soya is a distinct possibility, and we should not discount that. So, with those words, may I take your leave and thank you very, very much. And I particularly want to thank Kailash and his brilliant son Adil for facilitating this, to my friend Sandeep Bajoria for organizing all this, because I was in a flap. I didn't know it would go well, but they made it possible. And thank you very much. My colleague Vikash is also there in the hall. He's always my eyes and ears and keeps me informed of how things are going, etc. And all of you who have taken the trouble to come to Bangkok, we are all one big family, and we support Globoil as a concept. It has become the world's largest vegetable oil complex now. Teflas, my own association, the Solvent Extractors Association, and we send our good wishes to Mehta Saab, who I think this is the first conference he is missing after a long time. But we send him our best wishes, and we look forward to seeing him at POC. To my friend Atulji, I'm sure he will have comments in his next TV appearance, which may be this afternoon or this evening. And everyone who has been here, thank you very much. With that, may I take your leave?